Okay. Mr. DeJalorme?
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. Crandall?
Yes.
Mrs. Lyons?
Yes.
Mr. Cordone?
Yes.
Mrs. Albagor?
Yes.
And in lieu of public forum, as a reminder, people may submit questions or concerns to clerk@fulton.cnyric.org. Are there, let's see, I need someone to move item 1.04.
Move it.
Second.
Discussion? Mrs. Perry, yes.
Okay. Mr. DeJalorme?
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. Crandall?
Yes.
Mrs. Lyons?
Yes.
Mrs. Albagor?
Yes.
Mr. Cordone?
Yes.
Are there any questions regarding the upcoming meetings? Health and safety and facilities, policy committee, or the next regular board meeting in January? All right, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Superintendent Polvino. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. Do you want to also, the December 15th budget workshop, the tentative one, should have probably been listed there. It's also under mine as well, so it's under both.
Okay.
Should have been under yours. All right.
Okay.
Great, well, thank you. Happy holidays, everybody, as we go into that type of season. I can tell with all the challenges that go on on the personal side of things as well as the professional, December has arrived. There's no question. So a lot of things going on in everybody's lives. I hope everybody is doing well. I want to express a thank you to our entire staff. They had a huge lift last week. Our custodians were obviously at our GRB situation as well as our food services. And our food services, our custodial, our drivers all stepped up, and we didn't miss a beat. And I'm not sure that can only happen in an organization that just works extremely well together and supports one another. So I wanted to express my appreciation for all of those departments. I also wanted to express my appreciation for the flexibility and the professionalism of my administrators, my teachers, our staff, all members of this organization. I mean, it's amazing when you shift gears and you wake up in the morning and you're not sure exactly what kind of data or what kind of phone call you're going to get from Mr. Els or one of the rest of my team. You never know what you're going to get. And but we seem to be negotiating through things very well. So I want to express my appreciation. And Chris, and your team of your nurses is just absolutely stellar. So thank you. And I've been really pushing on Dr. Morgan's office with respect to learning how to do testing, as well as far as the processes that go along with that. And with that, I'll start just talking about the reopening plan a little bit in an update here. I did attend a webinar yesterday done by NISCUS, and it was probably the best information that I've had the opportunity to listen to and receive, because it was firsthand information. They had superintendents from Nassau County, Broome County, and Monroe County, and they went from soup to nuts, the process that they went through, and I learned so much information. And I was talking to Chris one day and just kept talking about it yesterday, and we're looking at some things for here in Fulton in the event of, so it really was helpful. And then I have a meeting with the rest of the superintendents in the county tomorrow. I'm not sure how many may have attended that webinar, but I will bring that information up and we'll have some discussion. One of the things that is very consistent is the partnerships between the counties and the school districts is essential. And I think we work very well with our county and our Department of Health. And so, but that was the key. They seemed to really put a lot of emphasis on that partnership in that process. We have all 6 schools up and running. As you may watch the news, there are different school districts in different places for a variety of different reasons. And I think, you know, on top of just the testing, things that happen in other places and with families and with exposures outside of school really have ripple effects into school. And I think that is really the DNA that happens in each of the districts and each of their buildings as well as ours. So we've been relatively fortunate to this point. And hopefully we'll continue on that path right through the holiday. So hopefully that's where we're at. But again, I want to just express to my staff, just great job, and we'll continue to negotiate things each day as each situation is a little bit different. Chris, if I could just ask you to comment, because you're more of the expert, with respect to any of the CDC news that came out, there were a lot of questions around quarantine that came out last week, as well as, or earlier in the week, as well as the family notifications that we're doing now as the leads in our school districts. If you could just comment, that would be appreciated.
So the health department reached out to us a few weeks ago and said that they don't have the staff any longer to be able to make all of the contact tracing calls. So we have taken that over as a school district. It's not really a lot different than what we're already doing. So once we get a notification that somebody has tested positive and we need to help with the tracing, we're actually making those phone calls to let them know these are the dates, this is when you're going to be quarantined. And actually, all of our families have been extremely supportive. They understand, that's, one of the, fallouts of coming to school at this, during this pandemic. So we have started making all of those calls. One of the confusing parts that have come out is the quarantine. So CDC has come out with a new quarantine order that requires people to only quarantine for 10 days. We actually, as a New York State and as a county, and I just checked in with our county director today, this afternoon, to make sure that nothing has changed, but we are still at a 14-day quarantine. So I know some people are like, oh no, it's 10. Nope, they still have not, New York State approved the 10-day quarantine orders. So we're still at 14.
That's been coming up quite a bit. And I wanted to have Chris comment on that this evening, just because there's a lot of those questions when they hear Department of Health versus CDC. And we follow the New York State guidance, and there's been other occasions where New York State has not been in accordance. They've actually gone beyond that, the CDC. So that's that case. Are there any questions about this evening or thoughts? Great. Again, appreciate all the support. You probably wait for our emails. I know I send you as soon as we get any information. I try to set that up and get that out as soon as possible. And I want to reinforce that the most accurate information is what's coming out of the district, and we try to get that out as quickly as possible to our community. So again, I think it's been working really well. We constantly, after every situation, we debrief. We talk about how can we get better each time. So with that, thank you. So I don't want to jinx us too much. We're doing okay. So we'll go from there. The winter athletics is the second report this evening. Chris, do you want to start with that? And then.
So Section 3, I spoke last time about it. So Section 3 in New York State has approved any low to moderate risk sport to begin on December 14th. With that being said, that would be our bowling and swimming team and indoor track. Section 3 unfortunately doesn't have any facilities because we use college facilities for competitions. They won't open up their facilities for us to be able to run competitions. So we won't be able to compete as a team. And swimming, I'm off my topic here a little bit. So we won't be able to compete with indoor track. But there's been quite a few requests, and people are wondering if they can still practice, considering that it has been approved by New York State and it has been approved by Section 3 that we can start low to moderate risk sports. For the sport of swimming, we can adjust our practices or adjust our lanes. And we could be able to have swim meets. And then, of course, there's bowling. And our league actually, just last week, we approved a bowling schedule that would be virtual. So we will not be competing against any other team in person. So if we're going against, say, ESM or Oswego, they would bowl at their center, we would bowl at our center, and we would compare scores. So, and we would look at the data and we would see if there would be any changes that we could do, because obviously we want to get to, as normal as possible. Now our bowling lanes are set up. There's dividers in between each lane. They don't share any equipment. It's really a pretty cut and dry program. Like I said before about swimming, there are a few ins and outs that we have to work on as far as, locker room use or restricted locker room use. And we don't have to go over some of those protocols. But again, in swimming, they don't share equipment. There isn't equipment that they're sharing, throughout the practice. So swimming would also be another one that we could do. And that would be a in-person meet is scheduled at this point. But if any school's in an orange or a red zone, we would not be competing in person at those events.
Yeah, we'd also follow all the protocols very clearly, all the mask wearing that we did before, all of the cleaning and health protocols that we do. The other thing that we've made clear and we talked about is that if we were to participate, when we would participate, the expectation is that we would compete with school districts that share the same philosophy around, and Chris has been talking about that with the members of the league, and I think that's an extremely important thing. I think especially going through this, and on the other piece we would do is monitor on a daily basis, not only our district but what's going on in others, and take one step, one day at a time through this process. So,
Brian, can you expand upon what you mean by districts that share the same philosophy? Because I think all of them want their staff and students to be safe. Is there
sure. Yeah, Dave, I should have said it different. Thank you. But I didn't say that the right way. Thank you. Yes, I want everybody, obviously the health and safety of all of our students is the key. I think what I'm saying is that there were some districts that would adhere more to the protocols with respect to mask wearing during the events. You could, and again, I'm not going to call out, districts had some different types of philosophies. Chris shared a story with me the other day from another section where two teams were playing in the quarterfinals of an event. The one school district who wore masks on their field at all times asked the other team if they would do the same. Correct me if I'm wrong, Chris. And the response was no. And that team chose to forfeit. Type of thing, where they chose that their belief in wearing the masks as part of the reopening plan and as part of their interscholastic sports was key. So we would be wanting to work with teams and school districts that share similar philosophies to ours, where we would expect the mask wearing, things like that, at all times and following protocols. And that's not a criticism of anybody else. So.
Right. Are there districts that aren't meeting standard expectations, Brian?
So
I don't know, Dave. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yep. So let me jump in on that. So the way that the New York State regulation is that a mask is to be worn at all times as tolerated. So that definition as tolerated is really up to each school district. So we would look at it as tolerated as if you're on the bench, whether you're 6 feet or 10 feet away from a person, you should be able to tolerate to wear a mask. If not, you need to leave the sideline area. During a game, obviously if I'm going to use soccer as an example because that's, the data we have. There are some schools that would say, as tolerated means 30 seconds after the kickoff or, during warm-ups, the mask would come down because they wouldn't be able to tolerate it anymore. That's following New York State guidance. There are other schools that say as tolerated means if I can't stand having my mask on any longer, I take my mask off and I exit the game at that point. So really it comes down to each school district on that definition as tolerated. While each school is following the New York State regulation, there are differences of the toleration rule.
Do officials get to weigh in on what's acceptable and what's not in any way?
They are not. So the officials were very clear right from the beginning. Their job is to officiate the game and the rules that are set in place. Their job is not to oversee or police the mask wearing.
That's a great question, Dave, and that's why Chris is the athletic director, because he had the right answer.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That was a great question.
Could I just get clarification? Could you simplify what our philosophy is then? What is our mask philosophy?
So our mask philosophy would follow very similar to what we have in school. We believe in masks at all times. if a student needs a mask break, they would ask for a mask break and make sure that they would be socially distanced during that time. And that would be very similar to during a game. We would require our student athletes to wear a mask. And if it's not tolerated, we would ask them to come out of the game or out of the practice at that point and physically distance away from the rest of the teammates. And when we say physically distance, in athletics or in sports or in phys ed, we're talking about at least 12 feet apart from anybody. So they would really have to remove themselves from the sidelines in order to get their mask break.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So Chris, when would the date of start is what?
Well, the start date is the 14th, which is Monday. We have a few issues that have popped up here in the last couple of days. So I would actually be looking at a start date of the 16th, which is a week from tomorrow, and that would give time for our nurse to be able to go through the paperwork and get our coaches, up to speed. With that being said, there are schools that will be starting Monday. There are schools that will be starting the Monday after that. So there is a little bit of leniency there. And the other thing is that our schedule is built to where we can have a couple days off. We can actually have about a week off and still play in our first contest. So we have built some time into our preseason before our competitions actually begin. Our competitions are scheduled to start in January.
Have we approved coaches?
We have not yet. No, we have not.
All right. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Chris, my computer was breaking up for a little bit. Did you say this is just for swimming and bowling at this point?
Swimming and bowling right now, and then letting indoor track start practicing.
Okay, and did you say that the swimming would also be virtual? I know you talked about that last meet, but my connection
Yep.
was bad, so I didn't hear what you said.
So right now we have meets scheduled in person. They would start in January. January 5th or 6th is really our first scheduled meet. We would like to have that in person. We would look at the data to see if that meet could be done safely, according to what the data is in that school district. If they are an orange or a red zone, we would not go to that school district, or we would not allow them to come here. And then at that point, we would look at reschedule or virtual.
And are you allowing spectators, or have we made a decision on that for?
We haven't made a hard and fast rule for spectators. Now for bowling, we are meeting again as a league on Friday. We are leaning more towards no spectators for bowling, just because a lot of the centers are not allowing extra people in their lane. So we are probably going to be going no spectators for bowling. And for me, I would like to follow suit for swimming as well, and not have spectators at this time.
We have the ability to live stream our swim meets, but not our bowling.
Well, we have a great guy on staff, Tim Wilson. He can get anything done. So I have faith in Tim that he would be able to get something live streamed for us.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that would be good. And so those are the only two sports then, and letting track practice. We haven't. What about like our other?
Sure.
Winter
So our other sports, we have 4 other sports, and those are considered high-risk sports. So we're looking at wrestling, girls and boys basketball, hockey, and cheerleading. So competitive cheerleading. Because you can't physically distance during those sports, and you have to share equipment, that nobody has found a way of no contact wrestling yet. So those would be really difficult. That would be a difficult sport to be able to do. So we still have to have approval from the governor, and then from the state, and then the section. And that again is scheduled to start on January 4th.
January 4th.
So we would hope in the next week or so that we would get clarification from our state officials.
So Chris, are you working on a contingency if there were to be by some miracle permission to move ahead with some of those high risk?
Now, what do you mean by contingency?
Well, what a season might look like for us.
So the contingency, so practice would start up in January 4th if we got that permission, and it would run through February 28th.
Okay.
So it's going to be an 8-week season.
All
It is scheduled right now at this point to stop on February 28th because our fall 2 sports begin March 1st, which would be our footballs and our soccer and volleyball and all those. They're scheduled to start on March 1st and run through the end of April. So, so the contingency, yes. So we have looked at league schedules. We have looked at, what non-leagues, does it make sense for us to travel, 2 counties away to play a game, or could we just travel, down the road a few miles and play a game right there? Even though they're a different league, it kind of makes sense to play maybe somebody more local for this year rather than doing the extra travel.
I
So
get
we have looked at a lot of those items. Yep.
Okay, that's what I was referring to, Chris, is
Okay.
thinking about those things rather than wait till being told we can and then not having thought through what it might look like if we are allowed to go forward, so that we're making good decisions and not feeling rushed.
Right. So I have coaches calling me every day, and they, for example, hockey coach sent me a whole bunch of rules today that the state of Ohio is playing hockey, and they have set out some guidelines, and that's what we would do. That's what New York would do, is they would borrow other people's guidelines and adapt it to our state. So I already have the Ohio State high school hockey rules and how they're cleaning the ice, how they're using locker rooms, how they're social distancing, and all of those things are already in place. Cleaning and sanitizing after each contest, or even in between periods, they even have some of that. So
I just saw an article, I believe it was in the Washington Post, that there was a study about ice hockey and a very high rate of COVID transmission in that sport. And
I have not seen that.
yes, and it interestingly enough to me, part of it is due to the cold air. What they found is the cold air causes the molecules to hang in the air longer. The other thing is, once mask gets wet, I didn't know this until I read the article. If your mask gets wet, you need to change your mask. Your mask is no longer effective.
Yeah, I did know that. I did know about the mask. I did not know about that.
I'm learning every day. I'm learning every day about, how to really be safe. So again, I'm just wondering, whatever we do, are we communicating well to our athletes and coaches, well, to everybody actually, about dry masks and cold air? Because during the good weather months, if we were outdoors, people were able and we're a little less stringent, I think, about the mask wearing if you were 6 feet apart, but I don't think that's true in the cold weather.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not sure what I'm reading, the science is still, they're still studying everything. So every day it's different. Something new.
Well,
Chris,
with every step that we do, go ahead, Fallon.
The 12 feet, can you clarify the 12 feet distance between sporting events and PE and things? Is that CDC guidelines or is that New York State? I'm just curious.
I believe it's New York State.
Okay, I was just wondering if the Ohio guidelines for hockey would be the less than the 12 feet.
Right. I'm almost positive it's New York State. I talked to the New York State phys ed director early on, and while if we were moving activities phys ed classes inside, it was 12 feet with a mask. It's 12 feet outside without a mask.
Okay, I just couldn't remember if it was CDC or the state. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, throughout this process, we'll continue to be probably, I don't know if the right word is conservative. We tend to do the most conservative and try to make sure that we maximize. And I think the mask wearing for us throughout the course of the day was one of the better decisions that we supported way back in July when we first put that plan together. And then we've continued. Our kids, we were at some elementary schools the last couple of days and last week. It was amazing. Not one note. They're all where they need to be. It's amazing to watch. The kids are really, and the staff are doing a nice job. You get that occasional reminder, but they pop them right up. I mean, everybody's really working hard, and it's becoming more of a norm. Sadly, it's a norm, but they're getting really good at it. And so we'll continue to do this one day at a time and monitor things extremely closely. And we'll go from there. Chris, you did a nice job. Thank you. I forgot you're the athletic director too. You've become so COVID focused, but nice balance. Thank you.
Yeah, I haven't forgotten.
Well, what's nice is the combination is kind of a nice combination. I'm going to try to share my screen. I was struggling with this earlier so bear with me if you can't see it. So just tune in. Let me see if this is going to work for us. Play now. My entire screen. Alrighty, share. And then we're going to fingers crossed. And we're going to go here. And we're going to go slideshow. We're going to go to the beginning. All right, fingers crossed. Is everybody seeing that? Anybody give me some feedback? Is it working?
Yep, I see it.
Oh, terrific. Thank you. This is my screen was really off for some reason right before the board meeting. So wanted to share with you just a bit around what we're doing with respect to the budget formatting in this one, a little bit different approach this year. We've really want to do more forecasting, especially with not knowing exactly clearly about where the state financial picture is. So we're going to be using the Forecast 5. I've talked about that before. This evening on the budget process calendar, I have to come out of this one. So we'll move that toward the end of the presentation. I can bring that screen up. And what that is the budget processing calendar is just the same the draft calendar that we shared with you before that has the board meetings, the budget workshops, as well as the budget committees on that. And I just wanted to run that by the board one last time as we continue to refine and tighten it up with some dates. So you have that. We'll go through that in a few minutes. All righty, let's see if this is going to work for me. So we'll go over that calendar in just a few minutes. I'll pull that up. I want to just share with you what our presentations could look like. So one of the things that we did in the last couple of weeks, and Kathy Nichols, Paula Hayden, we've been working with Mike Besby. Don Lisi's been sitting in because we need the tech component helping us with this. And what we did was you can compare and you can compare to any school districts in the state. And Mr. Vespi took us through a process and we were actually able to whittle down. And these are actually districts that have comparable consumer wealth ratio to us. They're very close to us with our wealth. As you can see on that page, there's Auburn there at the top. And this is really just the summaries that are similar to us. And we could do anything. We've got another slide, or I've got another story, if you will, that compares us to the Oswego schools. We can really do that. But you can see us, we sit at 0.34 as our wealth ratio. One would be right in the middle, solid average in the state. And so just some school districts we chose in this round to take a peek at. Port Jervis is one that I had never thought about, but I know it was something that it's a district that seemed very similar to us. And it's interesting, their wealth ratio is just a little bit higher than ours at 0.44. So what it does is allows us to do some compares, contrasts, allows us to see where do we stand. So this would be our comparison group, for example. Then also, this is what the enrollment story could look like. And, as we head toward the first budget workshop next week, just wanted to give you an idea. If you remember in the past, we might have a bar graph, and we're really trying to make it a little bit easier to understand. People can go back, reference this material and information, and hopefully there's more clarity for you as a board, as well as so you can ask great questions, as well as for our community if they're going through and trying to understand what's going on with our budget, they can see how our story goes. So this is the slide that really looks at our enrollment history. And you see us, we were way up at 36 or 3783 back in 2012. And then we're down to 3,200 in 2020. So you can see that we've had that steady kind of very small decrease each and every year over the past 8 years. So it's an interesting slide. And it just gives us another way. Some people are visual, so it gives you the combination of both. This is our enrollment story. This is the slide that, for example, that looks at our free and reduced lunch. And as you can see, we've had increases over time dating back to 2011, as well as you can see our L's population, which is the bottom yellow bar or line. You can see the slight increase of about 0.1% a year. We were at 0.14% back in 2011, and now we're at 0.122%. You can see how just like a little bit of a gain there, and then also you can see where our reduced lunch pieces like that. So again, it starts to give you different pieces of information. As you ask questions, we can actually go into the system and create those comparisons for you. And for us as a budget team, as we move through this process. This is a slide that just does the projections over time. So this is what looks like the birth rate versus the number of students enrolling actually in kindergarten. So another interesting slide, just kind of those projections, trying to get an idea of what we're heading toward over the next 3 to 5 years. Our economic profile, and this is really what can we learn about state aid revenues for schools during the Great Recession. And I know a couple of you were on the board at the time and you remember that. And as you can see, we had nice steady kind of increases. The red is our, let's close that off, of our state sources. And you can see we had nice steady gains. And then you can see in 11, 12, 13, it kind of got flat, went down a little bit. If we were actually in the program, which we could do in a meeting, you could actually scroll right over this. You can see the exact figure under each one of those. Is there a question? I can't see anybody, so.
Your daddy's little girl.
Okay. And so we'll continue going on. And then you can see it started to raise again. And then we have had some, you can see a nice steady decrease or increase here over the past number of years, right up through 19. So it's a great way for us to see. The yellow is our local service or sources. Our red is our state, and our federal is the blue. So it just gives us an idea for us to visualize a little bit differently. It's a great way to catch trends, great way to really develop questions and really dig deeper into our budget to see where we could be more efficient and where we need to do more work. This is just of all of our funds, a similar graph to the last one. So this is our for current budget right over here, which is right around 73 million. So it's right over here. And you can see over time where we've been. This is our state aid breakdowns, a little bit cleaner, a little bit clearer. This breaks down into the state aid categories. So you actually can see the BOCES aid, the building aid, foundation aid, and transportation aid. And you can see each one of those as well. So just giving you an idea of what this could look like. This is the district spending by function, what this looks like. These are our actual numbers. So these are actual slides. It gives you an idea. So this one compares our Fulton City School District with New York State. So you can see, where we are in each of the areas, and the functions are all over here. So you really start to see as a community and as a board, exactly where our dollars and where our emphasis are within our budgets. As far as our economic profile, this is our general fund. This is a graph. The green is the revenues, the gold is expenses, and then the, off blue, if you will, is our fund balance. You can see over time, our revenues have continued to go up. We had a couple of years where the expenditures were greater, and you can see right below that where you can see where we had to dip into reserves back in, according to this graph, 13, 14, 15. And then from 16 to 19, we've had a slow increase over time. My predecessor left me a nice, and the board of 2016-17, at the end of that year, did some really great work, and that was a nice bump right in here, and we've continued to have that growth. And this is kind of what you want. You want to see that steady growth forward each year. This is our expenditure story. You can see where our debt services are, our employee benefits compared to the state. So we're just a little bit less. So if we pull out benefits, for example, we're at 21.95% versus 22.92% in the state of New York. So it's just a nice, good way for us to demonstrate and see where we at. Is something jumping off the page? So there are questions that, if we're looking at specific object code, we may see something, this doesn't look right, or gee, we seem to be really low in this area. Is this an area where we need to look at and increase our funds and really try to figure out what's going on in those areas, or what are the needs of our students? And that should be, actually what I should have said, the needs of the students should drive what we're doing. And we should say, gee, if our needs are high, but we're lower in expenditure there, are we driving our funding and our revenues the way we want to and expending them toward our kids so as much gets to our kids as possible? This is just another slide that just kind of shows a little bit differently from a pie graph to a bar graph. And then this is an example of our general funds. And Kathy, chime in at any time if you'd like, because I can't see anybody. How does the district spending on instruction compare? So this is a slide where I hadn't shown any other slides, but this is one where it shows to our comparison group. So you've got this Port Jervis over here, you've got Oswego here, and the average is 53.89 of the comparison groups, which have the similar CWR, the wealth ratios, and we're a little bit less than actually the average. So we're just a little bit under the average, 53.89%, and we ride right around 52.58% in our current budget. So. And then finally, I don't know if there's any question. I'll take that off the screen so I can see everybody in a second. Then the budget workshop, December 15th. And Ms. Griffin, I'm not sure what time we'd like to do that evening. I just wanted to confirm with the board. So I will take it off, stop presenting, and then I can pull up the calendar if you'd like me to. You do have that in your board packet as well as online in the upload.
Yeah, I had a question on the last slide where you were talking about the expenditure story.
Yeah.
And where we seem a little bit low, not much, but a little. Yeah. I'm wondering if that is because that when it comes to instruction, we've taken advantage of a number of different grant monies to help us with instruction for positions because we didn't have the local dollars or the state dollars to fund it. Mm-hmm. If you put that in, I just wanted to point out that this isn't the whole story of instruction.
Yep.
Now, because we utilize a lot of grants to help us with meeting instructional needs.
Yep. And Robin, that's a great way to share with Joe, the community, to say, here's the other pieces that we do in the whole package. And I think that draws attention to the fact that it's not just the general fund, but we do have a package of federal grants and state grants that we also have that supplements this whole package that we call education here in Bolton.
I don't know every other district's budget story, but I know ours, and I know that our a lot of our grants carry a number of positions that have to fill in where we don't have the local or state dollars to do that. And then I would ask my colleagues at this point in time if they have a preference for time to meet on the 15th. Is it, Brian?
Yes, it is.
Is there a preference? Do you want to keep the same meeting time or do you want to try a little earlier? What's your choice? Anyone have an idea?
Not much before 6 for me.
Okay, good to know.
But I can join everybody late if the majority wants something earlier.
Thanks, Dave.
6 is fine for me.
Did you say 6 is good for you, Brenda?
6 works. Let's make it so that we can all be there, hopefully.
So stay at 6:30?
Oh, I thought it said 6 o'clock on the.
Well, Brian asked if that was okay.
I just wanted to confirm, we really had randomly, normally our meetings are at 6:30, so I didn't want to do that without.
Or 6:30.
Dave, is it better for you at 6 or 6:30?
I'm good with either of those. I should be clear by then.
Okay.
Thank you.
So a thumbs up if you're good to go. If I could see a thumbs up, I got,
Yep. And this is for 6. Are we saying 6?
I'm saying 6, yes.
Okay.
Okay, all right, 6 o'clock it is. Thank you.
Okay, and what you'll see at the next meeting, our debt service, we now have, you'll see what we call a forecast 1, which will be our transportation aid reduction, just in case the state ever comes to do that, it's there, plus the 5%, and he's also going to help us with a forecast plus 10% if the state aid was withheld, to give us a really good idea in our current budget, and then also some forecasting out as well. So starting to have some new information that we hadn't had. I know for since I've been here, I know we've had some discussion about wanting to be able to forecast out further, and I think this is probably the most opportune time to have to do that because we don't know what our budget, our revenue future looks like, because, you know, we don't, at this point in time, we know that that discussion on 20% withholding continues to be out there. I've been sending you anything that I've been seeing from NISCUS or NISBA. The different advocacy groups are doing a really nice job getting information out, but everybody's holding their breath to see, you know, what's going to happen in December, January, because the state's fiscal year is coming to a close only about 4 months from now. So that's that. There has been an ongoing question. Finally got you an answer. The ADIS, there had been a question about the pilot with respect to ADIS. And yesterday we received information that the Oswego County Industrial Development Agency has their legal department working on that with them because they have not, they were due March 31st to the county, state, or the county, town, and us. And as of that, so the IDA has taken the lead with this. I consulted with our attorney just to check quickly, felt that was the exact right step. So we right now just are keeping track, and we will stay in touch with the IDA to make sure that rudder continues to be deep. To give you an idea of what that pilot means, and the pilot that was not paid would be from the last March, because it was a March payment that still hadn't come in. For the last 3 years, I had Kathy pull it up, and let's see if Kathy's on the screen there or not, but we've had 301,000 in 16-17. It was 364,000 in 17-18, and it was 372,000 in 18-19. So it looks like it was some type of graduated scale over time, which makes sense when you look at 20, 30-year pilot agreements. So my guess is it wouldn't have been less than the 372. I don't know if Kathy's on or not. I can't. There she is. She's in the middle. Kathy, anything you'd add to that?
I don't have a copy of the ADIS pilot. So those dollar amounts were basically, well, those were from what Sunoco paid on their pilot. But I'm making the assumption that the pilot was very similar when it was sold to ADIS. So that, you know, that expectation was that it was a similar dollar amount.
So we will verify that. As I said, our attorney responded right back to me. I had her looking into this just because it had come up in a meeting recently, and so we do have an answer. So hopefully it'll be something that'll be rectified sooner than later.
Brian, can you explain, if there's anybody in the public listening to this, what you're talking about?
I'm going to have Kathy actually want to talk about payment in lieu of taxes, and like throwing in acronyms. Thank you, Ms. Lyons. You're always good at making sure that we don't do that. So thank you. Kathy, can you please describe, please?
Certainly. Usually in the spring of each year, excuse me, I have a cough drop in here. Usually in the spring of each year, we receive payments in lieu of taxes from, let's see, it's probably a dozen or so entities that had entered into pilot agreements with the Industrial Development Agency in Oswego County. They negotiate, you know, these preferential treatment, I guess you'd say, for you know, to encourage their business to be here. Sunoco had a pilot for, you know, basically, you know, quite a few years, and it had, as Brian told you, it had increased to, in March of 2019, we had received over $370,000 for that. They had a $26.9 million assessment on that property. The property was sold or purchased by ADIS in May of 2019, and ADIS did not make their pilot payment to the IDA for the spring of 2020. And if I understand correctly, what the IDA is doing is terminating the pilot agreement, so the ADIS property will now go back on the tax rolls. What that hopefully does for us is that, according to our attorney, although we may or may not get that pilot payment depending on what can be gotten from a company that's not paying. But if they go back on the tax rolls, hopefully we will receive taxes for part of this school year that they're back on the tax roll. And then since they'd be back on the tax roll and no longer a pilot, they'll become part of our levy. So let's hope they just become a responsible taxpayer in the community, and hopefully something will be settled to get us some of that back money. Of
Thank you
course,
for explaining.
well, the advantage to us, as our attorney had pointed out, was that when something's when a property owner's on the tax rolls, either the city or the county, in this case it would be the county, makes us whole. So if they don't pay their tax bill, we still collect that money from the county, and then the county is the one that goes after them.
Yeah, that was a great question. Does that answer your question, Ms. Lyons?
I just thought we should let the public know what all that was about.
Yep. I also will we can provide you in board backup too. We had a question during our audit committee the other day. I actually have the listing of our pilot agreements, and it's just something that'd be interesting for you to know. And so there's some smaller ones and some bigger ones. Sometimes you don't realize they're pilots, as opposed to you just assume that they're on the tax rolls. So it's interesting. So we can provide that to you, because we
Yeah,
have.
thank you very much. I just thought that we should explain some of these things to our public.
Yep. Well, it was a great question. And I think that question actually led to our inquiry, which may have, I don't know if it helped move this along. I was surprised when I received an email yesterday from the IDA with this information. So it was kind of ironic. We started asking, was about 2 months ago, 3 months ago, and we said, where is it? And all of a sudden here, we got this document today or yesterday. So with that, that's the conclusion of the superintendent's report. I'd just like to extend the beginning of the holiday season. I know we have another budget workshop coming up, but I hope the beginning of your season starts off well. So thank you and Merry Christmas, and I turn it back to the president.
Okay, that brings us to item 4.01. Would someone move it?
Move it.
Second?
Any discussion? Mrs. Perry, yes.
Mr. Crandall,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Mrs. Lyons,
Yes,
Mr. Cordone,
I was muted, yes.
Mr. DeJarm.
Yes.
Item 5.01.
Move it.
Second?
Discussion? Mrs. Perry, yes.
Mr. Crandall,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Mrs. Lyons,
yes,
Mr. Cordone,
Yes.
Mr. DeJarm.
Yes.
Mrs. Perry, is Mrs. Abelgore in or out of this meeting? Do you know?
I don't see her. Oh, wait. Mrs. Albagore. Okay, there you are.
It's muted. I'm sorry, you guys keep freezing up. I'm not even sure which one you're on.
I am on item number 5.01, Mrs. Abelgore. It would be, we're voting on new business approved committee on special education.
I am a yes, and if you didn't hear me on the other ones, I'm a yes on those other ones.
Thank you.
I wasn't sure. I wanted to verify. Thank you. Okay,
Keep losing you guys.
item 6.01.
Move it.
Second.
Any discussion? Mrs. Perry, I'm a yes.
Mr. Crandall,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Mrs. Lyons,
yes,
Mr. Cordone,
Yes.
Mr. DeJarm,
Yes.
and Mrs. Albagore.
Yes.
All right, I wondered if you would like to batch items 7.01 through 7.05. It would be our personnel resolutions.
Yes.
If someone- Okay, we have a move and second. Is there any discussion on any of these items?
Just wanted to wish Mrs. Ryan well in her retirement. So sad to see her go.
Thank you. All right, Mrs. Perry, I'm a yes.
Okay. Mr. Crandall,
Yeah.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Mrs. Lyons,
Yes.
Mr. Cordone,
Yes.
Mr. DeJarm,
Yes.
and Mrs. Alvegore.
Yes.
Okay, we are at board forum. And Sam, would you like to kick us off this evening?
I guess it's pretty cool that we can carry on with winter sports practicing and stuff like that. I was just wondering if practices could happen the same way they did with fall sports, or will that not be able to happen? Like not just low risk sports, but
Right.
sports like basketball and stuff too.
I have to refer that question to Mr. Polvino, and I don't know if he's ready to answer that tonight or not. Mr. Polvino, did you get Sam's question?
Yeah, I did, and I saw Chris on mute. Chris, you want to speak to that? I know we've talked a little bit about it.
Sure. So we really need more guidance from New York State officials and before we can open up anything more for the high risk sports. Right now, they said that we cannot do any high risk sports, so it would only be just basic conditioning would be the only thing allowed at this time. We'll continue to monitor, what we have going on and monitor what the state is going to allow us to do and make decisions based on data that comes out from them.
Okay.
Are you good, Sam? Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. DeJarm?
Yes. Am I on mute? No.
No, you're good. You're good.
Thank you, Mr. Ells, for the update. And I just wanted to say, if no one's been over to Lanigan yet to see the new parking lot, I actually drove it, and it's got a nice drop off, and it feels natural, nice curve. So great job over there. Are they utilizing it yet? Do you know, Mr. Polvino?
I actually parked in it today when I was over there. Mr. Carroll and I went over, and actually we found that being outside at arrival and dismissal, you get to talk to more kids and staff and parents. So it's a great way to interact because we felt like we wanted some time. So I actually parked in there today. Yeah, it's nice. I have been looking at the mouth a little bit. It's a little tight, I think, when there's two cars. So I'm having Terry Tiroli and Mike James take a look at that before they finalize on the right-hand side there at the mouth as you enter the parking lot. But yeah, they've done a beautiful job, and they were putting up the basketball nets today, the rims actually, when we were there today. So.
Great. And have we gotten any word from the city as to whether or not we're going to be able to do a one-way in and a one-way out when they?
I can connect with Mr. Crump on that. I know that they were looking into that. Dom, if you could follow up with that with Al, let me know. I know that they were making some inquiries on that, and I know that one of the city councilmen was also working on that as well.
Okay.
All set, Nick?
All set. Thank you.
Mrs. Lyons?
Just want to thanks. Yeah, I can't talk. Thank you. I've been in this house too long. Mr. Ells and Miss Nichols both for explaining things so well. And Chris, I can't thank you enough for all you're doing, boy. That's it.
Okay, Mrs. Alvegore?
Yeah, I kind of missed some of Brian's part of the presentation, so I'll probably be giving him a call or at least going back and reviewing online. I have had my first bout of frustration for the connectivity issue. I'm not sure if it's on my end or Mr. Lisi's end, but I have kind of been in and out and watching all sorts of crazy stuff happen. So thank you to Chris for keeping us on top of what's going on COVID-wise and with the sports. And let's just hope that things go smooth from here on out. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Cordone.
You're muted, Dave.
God, go figure that. So I'm wondering if at some point we can get a report now that the first quarter is behind us for how our students in each group are doing, those that are hybrid, those are who are remote. I'm just curious as we're moving forward through the school year, how kids are progressing academically, with the notion that, obviously at the end of the school year, if things don't work well for some, they could wind up in summer school. And obviously that has an impact budgetarily on us. So I'm just wondering if we can kind of get some data to find out where our kids are at, and comparison data at that, this year to last, perhaps, or the year before, just to see, how our students doing overall. And I want to thank Mr. Els for the clarity around the winter sports and the detail that he offered us this evening. And hopefully everyone has a happy holiday. Thank you.
So to Mr. Cordone's question about a report, is the board good with the report on progress? Okay, and to compare apples to apples, should it be to last spring?
Maybe to first quarter last year to first quarter this year.
Well, the only problem is this first quarter last year, we didn't have a hybrid.
Well, but we would know at least how all students did, I guess is my point. I'm more concerned about how our current circumstances compared to what we typically have.
I agree with you, Dave.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that idea.
All right. I just wanted to be clear though, that it's not going to be the same. We're not going to compare like
Well,
to, and nationally, the results are not good.
I know, and I just kind of want to see what the reality is here.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know we've paid we tend to, I think mostly of the kids who are before us. So our hybrid kids, when they're with us, we know they're with us. I'm really concerned about the remote kids.
Yes. Yes.
And even the hybrid kids when they are remote, how are they doing remotely?
Right.
No.
I think and I would agree, Dave. I think that's on everybody's mind. I think that's on everybody's mind nationwide, not just here in Fulton. It is a concern. Okay.
We can absolutely provide that broken out in those ways. We'll make it very apples to apples and
okay.
Also put it in the context of some national data that's becoming available to give the public some context. So.
Thank you, Mr. Carroll.
Thank you.
Okay. Dave, are you all set?
I am. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Crandall.
Yes. I agree with Brian on the entrance to the parking lot. I think that is tight. It should be addressed. I see them working on the basketball court today. They're doing the lighting. And there's usually anywhere from, 10, 15 cars in the parking lot when I go by every day. Other than that.
How's the congestion out on the street, Tim, compared to before the parking lot?
None. You don't see cars parked on the road, in the street. Neighbors are lighting off fireworks in celebration. It's just glory days over here.
All righty. Thanks, Tim.
But other than that, hope everyone has a great holiday. Stay safe. Drink plenty of alcohol. It kills germs. So they say. I mean, it's working for me. I haven't had anything wrong.
You can go.
That's it.
Mouthwash too, Tim. Mouthwash works.
Yeah.
So they say. And
better.
Mrs. Cooper.
Okay, medically, I have to say that does not work. Medical disclaimer. To Mr. Cordone's point, I too would like a report, especially because I was just reading an article over the weekend about our junior high program in the humanities and how well that's doing, increasing both reading and writing. So it's really area we can highlight as well, where we're succeeding during this difficult time. A quick question, Mr. Pavino, I just wanted to make sure the budget sessions that we're going to be holding, those are going to be live streamed to the community, correct? Okay.
Yeah, budget workshops are, budget workshops are live streamed, yes.
I just wanted to make sure so no community members come to me and say, I didn't know, because I want to make sure we're open to the public and they all know where to go for questions and concerns. Mr. Els, I just wanted you to confirm for me, only because I've heard a couple complaints in the community and I know it doesn't rely on us, but we start to notify the families when we get notified from Department of Health, correct? If they're not notifying us for a week later after they're tracing, we start it that day.
Correct.
Okay.
That is correct. Yep. So the health department will call me and let me know if we have a case, and that's when we start the tracing. And you are correct that with the way the testing is happening, we don't get notification. The health department doesn't get notification until almost a week has gone by.
Okay.
So we could be putting people in quarantine that are already on day 8 of their quarantine of 14 days, and that's as soon as we received the information.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I knew that you are on top of it, but I just wanted to make sure the community was well aware that as soon as we get notified from the Department of Health, we're getting out there diligently. Let's see, what else did I have? Oh, I wanted to also give a shout out to Mr. Palvino and how many community members have talked to me about how happy they were to hear about our snow days and that we're going to continue with snow days. We've made a lot of community members happy. And so I just wanted to take a second to tell you, as a parent, I also appreciate that. And then I think the only thing else I have is a quick shout out to our transportation department. I have noticed that I was really worried once the temperature started dipping and taking temperatures. I thought for sure there was going to be a delay. They are spot on. They are right on time. I am hearing all but good things with them and the cold and continuing to get our students on the bus and to school on time. So thank you so much for all their hard work. And that's all I have. Happy holidays, everybody. Nice to see you.
All righty then. I just want to thank you for the reports this evening. As always, I learned things. And Mrs. Cooper, thanks for setting me straight. I like to learn. I want to let everyone know that I appreciate every person and the efforts that they've made, especially over the last month. I mean, since school opened, but this last month has been challenging as we've adapted to we're in a day-to-day mode now of who's going to be where when. And it's a big change, and people have been resilient, and they are moving along with it, and we're keeping our kids as engaged as possible. I know everyone's doing their best for our students, and I'm proud of our students for showing up. For those that show up, I understand there might be a few that maybe aren't so good in that aspect. So with that, I want to just say happy holidays for whatever your holiday is. Merry Christmas to those who celebrate Christmas like I do. I'll be thinking of all of you. I want you to stay safe and healthy, and I hope that you all come back healthy in the new year, and I look forward to things improving as we move forward. So thank you. I don't have anything else. So with that, would someone move item 8.02?
Move it.
Second.
Any discussion? Mrs. Perry, I'm a yes.
Mr. Crandall,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Mrs. Lyons,
You're muted, Lynn.
Yeah.
Mr. Cordone,
Yes.
Mr. DeJalorme,
Yes.
and Mrs. Albagor.
Yes.
All right, you have the rest of the evening to yourselves, folks. What are you going to do?
I got two choices. Either go wrap presents or go work on my dining room.
Tim, you're always busy.
That's right. I'm not a TV person. I don't like sitting. I have to go.
All right. You take care, Tim.
You too.
Bye now.
Good
Good
night.
night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Bye.